I'm looking back on this story from many, many years ago. For it to make sense, you need to understand the legal landscape where we lived. Divorce was not a simple, no-fault affair. If both parties didn't agree to end the marriage, you were trapped unless you could prove the other party was at fault. The clearest, most recognized fault was adultery. Without proof of something like that, you were at the mercy of your spouse's willingness to sign. And if they refused, you entered the brutal, often extortionate world of divorce by negotiation. I married young. Too young. The classic story. I was young, dumb, and full of, let's say, misguided optimism. She was beautiful, and I mistook passion for permanence. Within the first year, the cracks became canyons. We were fundamentally mismatched, different values, different dreams, a constant, low-grade tension that eroded any fondness. I realized, with a cold clarity, that I needed out. When I broached the subject of divorce, my then-wife's response was immediate and pragmatic. She didn't weep or rage about lost love. She simply stated she had no intention of agreeing. Life as a married woman, particularly to someone with my earning potential, was far more comfortable and socially secure than life as a divorce. She saw my desire for freedom as a financial opportunity. She named her price, $100,000. This was the unspoken rule of our jurisdiction. If you held the keys to the cage, you could demand a ransom. We had no children, no jointly owned property, no significant shared assets. This was a pure cash-for freedom play. My entire net worth, scrimped and saved, was about $25,000. I offered it all, desperate to be rid of the sinking ship. Thus began a grueling, degrading negotiation over the price of my own life. Weeks turned into months of haggling. It was like buying a used car from the world's most mercenary dealer. Except the commodity was my future. The resentment festered. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she reluctantly agreed to the $25,000. The relief was oceanic. I was giddy, lighter than I'd felt in years. To celebrate this bleak, expensive victory, a close friend insisted on taking me out. This is where fate, or sheer cosmic irony, decided to intervene. We lived in a metropolis of millions, a vast, anonymous grid of possibilities. My friend chose a bar in a district I'd never set foot in, a place I'd have had no reason to visit. We drank to my impending, costly liberation. As we stumbled out into the cool night air, and to 30 a.m., I blinked, thinking the alcohol was playing tricks. Across the street, under the harsh glow of a street lamp, was my wife. And she wasn't alone. She was wrapped around a man, laughing in a way I hadn't heard in years. A vague, unconfirmed suspicion I'd buried suddenly roared to life, now clothed in undeniable flesh. They hailed a taxi. A surge of adrenaline, sharp and clear, cut through the booze. I shoved my friend into the next cab. "Follow that car," I said, the words sounding like they came from a movie. To my profound, almost surreal delight, the taxi led a direct path back to our apartment building. I paid my driver and waited, lurking in the shadows like a noir detective. They got out, oblivious. As they stood by the building's entrance, saying their prolonged goodbyes, I raised my phone. The camera shutter clicked silently in the night, capturing several crisp, damning images of a passionate kiss. I immediately emailed them to my secure work account, creating a time-stamped, unassailable record. Then, instead of storming over in a rage, a strange calm descended. This wasn't anger, it was leverage. Pure, unadulterated leverage. I walked up, just as they were pulling apart. "Evening," I said, my voice steady. My wife's face cycled through shock, horror, and fury in a split second. Her companion just looked confused. "I'm the husband," I explained to the man, extending my hand. He shook it, mortified. I turned to my wife. "Just one request. If you two are planning on continuing this, please don't do it in my apartment. Show some respect for the furniture, at least." I then reached into my wallet, pulled out a business card, and handed it to the stunned gentleman. "Thank you," I said, sincerity warming my voice. You have no idea how much money you may have just saved me. If you ever want a beer to talk about all this, first round's on me. With a nod to both of them, I turned and walked into my building, leaving them frozen on the sidewalk. I went upstairs, and for the first time in months, I slept soundly. The next morning, the storm broke. She was incandescent with rage, but it was the rage of someone whose game has been exposed. She spat a legalistic argument. Since we had a verbal agreement to divorce, her actions couldn't technically be considered adultery under the strictest definition, and our financial deal should stand. A sliver of doubt wormed into my euphoria. Could a lawyer twist it that way? Later that afternoon, my phone rang. It was him. He apologized profusely, his voice thick with shame. He explained that she had told him our divorce was mere paperwork from a long-dead marriage, that we lived separately, and that she was certainly not intimate with me. I casually mentioned that, unfortunately, her claims of celibacy were false. We'd been together as recently as a few weeks ago, well within the timeline of their relationship. The silence on the other end was profound. He asked to meet, over coffee. He was a man wrecked by a familiar betrayal. His previous marriage had ended due to infidelity. He saw my wife not as a co-conspirator, but as a fellow victim of her lies. He was eager to make amends. Do you have any proof of when you two started? I asked. Anything at all. He had a digital treasure trove. Vacation photos from 6 months prior, showing them embraced on a beach, selfies at dinners, and most crucially, screenshots of their text conversations, where she explicitly detailed the fictional state of our marriage. Just waiting for the final decree. It's amicable. And no, of course I don't live with him anymore. That's over. He sent me everything. I compiled the evidence into a digital dossier. My photos from the night before, his photos and texts, a timeline. I backed it up in triplicate, cloud, external drive, and a USB stick hidden at my office. This was my nuclear arsenal. Then, I called for a summit. I sat her down at our kitchen table, the scene of so many bitter breakfasts. I didn't yell. I laid out the 2 paths forward with the calm precision of a surgeon. Path A, the easy way. We file for a no-fault, uncontested divorce immediately. She has 30 days to move out. She walks away with nothing. The $25,000 deal was vaporized by her infidelity. We go our separate ways, cleanly. Path B, the hard way. I take my dossier to the most aggressive divorce lawyer I can find. We pursue a full at-fault divorce for adultery. I would sue her for legal fees, and likely for damages related to her fraud. The case would be public, humiliating, and would likely leave her with a 5-figure judgment against her debt. That would follow her for years, if not decades. She stared at the photos of herself and her lover, at her own lying texts mirrored on my laptop screen. The fight drained from her. She chose path A. That Monday, we were at the courthouse when it opened. The paperwork was filed. I moved in with my friend to avoid any manufactured drama during her 30-day exit period. The court hearing was a formality. The judge, seeing our agreement and lack of entanglements, stamped the decree with a dull thud that was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. I didn't wait. I raced from the courthouse to the city records office, filed the stamped decree, and made it official. The cage door swung open, and I didn't owe the warden a dime. As for the other man, we did have that beer. We found an odd kinship in the wreckage she left behind. We became genuine, if occasional, friends, a bond forged in the bizarre crucible of her duplicity. Though life and distance, pandemics included, have made us less close, there's still a mutual respect. He helped me secure my freedom, and I helped him see the truth. So, was it revenge? Or was it just the universe finally, belatedly, enforcing a little poetic justice? I'll let you be the judge. All I know is I walked away free, clear, and $25,000 richer than I expected to be.